Good morning or good afternoon or good evening or good night, whatever it is where you are. Welcome back and thanks for joining us again today for another amazing podcast, another chance to learn about some real estate deals and tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff that we've got coming up for you again. So thanks for joining us again today and joined again as usual by Mr. Sandy McKay. How are you?
Rob, fantastic. How about you?
Very good, man. Very good. It's a great day to talk real estate, isn't it?
It's always great for real estate. Always great. Snow or sun or whatever you're looking at today.
That's
we were
right.
talking earlier. I know you're not experiencing what we're experiencing, but we're used to winter times up here, and you're not.
Well,
anymore.
that's the one little bit of a weird thing I will say is that it's really hard to keep track of time. And my son now has this board that he just got, and I think it's a couple days behind, but he writes on it with chalk how many days till Christmas, because there's just no indicators really.
Yeah.
Right. So except for the board, and then now the countdown's on, and we got to find somewhere to go Christmas shopping because that's a little tricky around here too.
Nice. Remind me, you got your retreat thing happening soon?
Yeah, it's on Friday. Actually, some people are arriving today. Actually, so
by the time this comes out, probably already happened. But maybe you get a recap on the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Super pumped. I mean, we've got 21 people from BRRRR arriving over the next couple of days. We're going to do we're going to do a big property tour, and of course, see some fun things as well while they're here. So we're looking forward to it. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah.
What about
awesome,
you? What do you have going on?
What do we have going on? We're doing. I'll probably share more about this on the next episode because we're just launching our fund. Haven't talked about this much. Launched our real estate investment fund that's going really well. We're excited. Got a couple of projects closing in like a month, so it's pretty full on with that. And really exciting projects with that. So we're raising money, looking for people to partner with, and doing some big deals.
Well, that's cool. And you know what you haven't done though is really advertise very well here for that kind of thing.
Yeah. I know.
But if anyone's interested in learning more, maybe reach out to Sandy, right? How do they do that?
What we're going to do, you might not even know this, but we're going to bring on one of our partners in that in the next coming weeks. So we'll make an episode and talk a little deeper on how we set it up and what it looks like and potentially how people might want to get involved.
I gotcha. But while they're here and interested in learning about it, maybe, right now, how do they reach out to you?
The easiest thing to do is to go to essentialrep.com. And all the info is up there. We got a great site put together. It's full of information on what we're up to, what it looks like, and how people can get involved.
Okay. Put that in the show notes.
We'll
make sure it gets in there. Just for people that are interested in learning about that now. And everybody should go to our website, BRRRRPodcast.ca. You can interact probably with most of the guests that we've had there because all their info is in the show notes as well. So you can go on there, and anyone who you listen to the podcast, you said, wow, I'd really like to maybe get in touch with that person. Usually most of the show notes and a way to get in contact with our guests is right there. So go over there and get in touch with all the guests, listen to all the past episodes, and get our free gift. Very excited about the free gift.
Someone's excited. Yes. Wow. Well, I'm recording at home today, so we got maybe a little background noise here and there. But wow, it's exciting. The ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estate. And people can pick that up at BRRRRPodcast.ca, and of course get on our email lists and everything that we got going on, so you never miss out on a show or an event or a property tour or a webinar or anything like that.
Right. So if you're on the list, you would already have all the info that Sandy was talking about before, and you would know about the tours coming up that we're doing here in Costa Rica. So get on the list. All right. And go over to iTunes, leave us a rating and review. You guys know it helps us and helps people learn about the show and helps us learn about guests and all that kind of stuff. So just go over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. Thank you. What else do we got? Anything?
Nothing on my side. I think we got a great interview lined up. Maybe we can get into that.
Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. We've got Sarah Eder here with us today. And Sarah, I'm going to read a quick little bio here before we get into it, and then we'll learn a lot more about you. But Sarah is a professional real estate investor, managing joint venture partner, and raising capital coach. And after only 4 years investing in real estate, she's managed to become a full-time real estate investor with joint venture partnerships and creative financing techniques. She owns over 50 million worth of real estate, and she focuses on acquiring multifamily properties and developments across the GTA and Golden Horseshoe. Everything from duplexes to 30 plus units to commercial buildings. She employs primarily the BRRRR strategy, which we've talked about a lot, and we can dive into a little bit more on this show. She employs that one. She finds significantly discounted properties with room for forced appreciation, allowing her and her investors to pull back a significant portion of the capital while retaining a high annual ROI. And she works with partners to create opportunities for wealth generation and financial freedom and provide full service, hands-off investment opportunities with her expert team of contractors, managers, accountants, et cetera, et cetera. So welcome to the show, Sarah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And one thing I think that maybe some people will be interested is using the BRRRR strategy on sort of a larger scale, because we dive pretty deep into, how it might look for the small investor. But this will be interesting so they can sort of get a grasp on what it looks like when you start to grow to that larger scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, start out the way we always do. Tell us a little bit about how you got the bug, how you started out, and then how you got to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love talking about my origin story because it's pretty unique. I think some people get into this like always having the idea that, they wanted to be in real estate or they're excited about real estate. It was an accident for me more than anything. I was a former professional athlete, actually, about 6-7 years ago. I have been doing it my whole life, and I retired at the age of 26. And I was kind of just at loose ends. I really did not know what I wanted to do with my life. I had a business degree, had never used it, so I was kind of a really poor candidate for entry-level positions with no experience in corporate. And so I pretty much just took like the first job that would have me with my limited business experience. And it happened to be a property management company in the GTA. Again, no real interest in real estate, but I was like, great, it seems like a decent job. And I think my skill sets would be useful for this type of position. And ended up just honestly like falling in love with real estate. Didn't love property management per se. I mean, I dealt with a lot of tenants, but hey, I got in at the ground level and I really learned how to do it like at the nitty gritty like points. Like I was like a leasing agent. I met with tenants. I managed buildings, like really just like the ground level of real estate. But what really intrigued me were the clients that I got to meet, the people who owned these buildings. And I thought, wow, like these people are incredible, because what really stood out to me was that they weren't billionaires. They weren't millionaires. In my head, that was like, oh, like you have to be a millionaire to own real estate. But these people were like accountants, police officers, like, just everyday people owning these amazing apartment buildings. And I thought, okay, this, like, I'm on to something here. I really need to figure out how this works. And so that's how I caught the bug. And I started going to different real estate groups. I was a part of the RAIN network, just Right Club, just some investment groups across Ontario. And just decided that, hey, like I'm going to do this. I'm going to just dive kind of head first into investing. And I didn't have a lot of cash. I had experience with managing buildings, which was a good, boon for me. But I didn't have good credit. I didn't have money. So that's how I started off, learning about joint ventures and realizing that, that is going to be, kind of the route I would have to go. So I started small with some little, duplexes, some fix and flips, some student rentals and things like that. And then, just kind of got to where I am today through scaling.
Just listening to the story though, makes it sound like this has been, a 15-year thing, but really it's been a relatively short amount of time.
Yep.
So let's sort of talk about, because you did have the experience. And one of the big things, especially I think for most of the people probably listening to this, is that they're going to come from the same places sort of all of us did here.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, they're not their dad doesn't have the yacht and
Exactly.
and they've, you know, just inherited apartment buildings or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They've actually like learned some strategies and learned how to work smart, maybe not hard, but smart at least, in order to be able to keep acquiring and building. So you had the experience, which is great, and that you weren't afraid to go out there and say, all right, you positioned yourself in a way that was like, all right, I have the knowledge, and the knowledge is very important. You know nothing of what I know. So your money does nothing for you in that circumstance, which is something that's really hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around when they're first starting. So how did that look when you first got going?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something I tell a lot of people getting started today. They're like, oh, I have nothing to bring to the table. I'm so worried. Like, I'm so scared of asking people for money. I don't understand like what I bring. And you made such a good point, because it's time. Like, that's like the ultimate battle, right? Like in anything that we do in life, it's money versus time. And a lot of these individuals, like if they're busy corporate people, they're accountants or lawyers, you know, like they don't have time to be driving off to God knows where, like looking at real estate. Like they want the benefit of real estate. They don't want to be dealing with handymen. They don't want to be, you know, meeting with tenants and all the stuff that we deal with. And so that's really how I attacked this. I was like, I might be young, I might not own a lot of assets on my own, but I'm willing to put in the sweat equity. I'm willing to put in the time to go find the deals. I'm willing to go, you know, meet with the contractors and do what it takes to make this a good cash flowing asset. And just having that little bit of property management experience gave me just the know-how to like select good tenants, cash for keys, just, you know, being able to position and see those opportunities in underutilized buildings. And so like, if you get any type of background in real estate, you could start working for like a mortgage broker, like a real estate agency, like property management, construction. Like if you just have that little bit of knowledge that a potential money partner is lacking, you instantly have value to that individual, and you have the time. And really, I think that's probably the biggest factor, is you're willing to go out, hustle, find those deals. They just want to go live their happy corporate lives. They don't want to do the boots on the ground, right? So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's why I got into as a realtor. I mean, that was the primary reason, was one, access to like information that we wouldn't get otherwise, but even more so just ingraining like fully in the industry and just learning during my day job, which as a realtor, just learning so much as you go, right? And anything to entrench yourself in the business can help you with your investing.
Exactly.
I always think that's a great idea for a lot of people starting out, especially if you're really looking to go fast, like you have. You know, you got to learn fast, right? To be able to go fast. What made you choose some of the first properties you got invested in? What was your first property? How did that look, or what did those first few look like, and why did you end up choosing those houses or those strategies?
Yeah, so it was kind of like a bit of like throwing a dart at a dartboard. There were honestly so many markets, and I was overwhelmed. I was like, you know, do I go Hamilton? Do I go up like Durham region? Do I go Niagara? Like, I really didn't know where I wanted to end up. And I think I went to Rain's like annual conference, and Brantford was one of like the top 10 cities. And I had heard somebody else like on a podcast talk about Brantford. I thought, you know what, why not? Sounds great. So I started doing little property tours on my own. Like I would go to open houses and meet with some realtors locally. And I saw a lot of potential in Brantford. Even back when I started, like in like 2018, 2019, Hamilton was already heating up like crazy. And as a brand new investor, you know, there were already bidding wars with like no conditions in Hamilton. And I thought, like, I don't know about this. Like for my first deal, I was not confident to just like go in firm. I didn't have a huge roster of JVs yet. I didn't have that power team really like entrenched. So I just didn't feel confident enough to like beat out all these big guys in the Hamilton market. So I thought, well, it makes sense. I mean, Brantford's 25 minutes away. Like it's going to be the overflow, the catch basin for people getting priced out of Hamilton. So that's kind of where I decided to plant my flag, so to speak. And it was a good time. It was starting to get competitive in Brantford, but I didn't have a ton of huge players in the market yet. And so I decided to start small. I started off with a couple of small, like single family flips, learned a lot. They were not always the greatest outcomes, but it was a really good crash course in how to manage contractors, timelines, that kind of thing. Just build out those systems for like materials and things like that. And then I actually did some student rentals. That was at a time when the college was actually growing and they were actually building out like another campus locally. So I saw a lot of potential for student housing in the area. So we started off with like a couple small, 5-bedroom houses that were like run down, close to university, but like decent areas. We did, some fixing up on them, employed the BRRRR strategy, which worked really well. And then kind of after that, I just jumped right into multifamily because I didn't like the student management so much.
I think Rob can relate to that one. I think that was similar to
your, one of the things that I did right away is I said, yeah, I know, well, not right away. I had a student rental early on and I managed it myself. So once we sold that place, a few years later, we decided to get back into it, but I knew that I wanted nothing to do with the property management. Yeah. And they're fantastic, and I don't have to hear about everything that's going on, so I love it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't if I had to be involved on the same level as before. So this transitions us into some challenges. What were some of the big challenges starting out?
I think I had 2 big challenges, and I think almost every like new investor goes through this. So one was deal flow. So like I found that I was really good at raising money. Like I was getting a lot of leads, getting a lot of, JV partners, and really struggling to just find enough deal flow to like keep them happy. So that actually transitioned me into learning a lot more about finding like off-market deals. I actually trained with some wholesalers to figure out like what are the tactics they're using to find deals, and basically employed something similar. I never really actually ended up wholesaling like full time or anything, but using those tactics, like, hey, these guys do this full time, like they know how to find deals. I might as well just why reinvent the wheel, learn what they're doing. And was actually able to track down like a lot of deal flow using those strategies. But it was tough. Like, there's always like that tricky part when you're first getting started. Like you want to raise money from joint venture partners, but you don't have enough deals, or you have a ton of deals and you don't have enough money. And it's like always just trying to find that happy medium so that the machine keeps rolling. I wanted to keep growing. I had these goals. And, I was like definitely hitting some roadblocks that I felt were like slowing me down. It was like in the beginning, I felt like I was always in surplus of something, either deals or money. And it was just trying to find the systems to keep that rolling smoothly. And I think like one of the other big challenges was my power team. In the beginning, I don't think I like emphasized enough the importance of like good contractors. Like I like you, like I did all my own property management first thing. I was like, oh, I can manage all these doors. It's fine. So I found myself like a one-man circus. I'm doing the deal acquisition and the deal sourcing. I'm doing the property management. I'm doing the JV management and, all that going on. And I just really didn't, understand in the beginning, like how important having, property managers and bookkeepers and that team was to my growth. It hurt enough at some point that it forced me into delegation and hiring my own team, but I probably could have done that a little sooner.
Yeah. And let me just say something. I think it says a lot about you when you say that the deal flow wasn't there, because we've talked to people like, Russell Westcott in the past, who is huge on JV deals. And he talks about the fact that at first he was in sort of the same position that you found yourself in, at least a little bit of excess funds.
Yeah.
And not enough, but for him, it was, okay, I have the funds, I'm going to put it somewhere. So almost buying like indiscriminately at first and admitting to us, that wasn't the right way to go.
Yeah.
So it does say something about you, because there's always something for sale. If you want to buy something, there's something there. I like the fact that you call it like deal flow, because I mean, to me, that's what it's about, right? So winning for the money partners, not just acquiring an asset, which would probably do well no matter what, but you're looking for the best one, right?
The best, exactly.
Well, it would have done well in those years, probably 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
I don't know about today, or I don't know about 2021, 2022 at least.
It's harder and harder all the time.
Don't we all just shed a tear for that? Just, it doesn't matter when you start, I find, because when I think it was around 2006, 7 for me to really start getting into it and just just go crazy, just buy everything indiscriminately. Yet we were always like, this one looks like it's $1,000 over what it should be. They should be asking. Let's look for something else.
Not 100,000 over.
No, just 1,000 at the time. Getting into it, you're like, which one's the best deal? We've got 4 here, and they all make fantastic cash flow, but this one, the ROI is 0.1% lower than this one. So we'll go with just this one.
It'd be nice to have those today. Opportunities. It might be coming. Maybe it's coming. Maybe it's coming. Maybe it's almost here.
It's on the horizon. Well, you know what? And that's the thing, though. You never know. You don't know, right? You just know when you're breaking into the market that's the time you've got to start, and these are the houses you've got to buy, or the buildings you've got to buy.
It's like using the data you have in front of you. People are like, well, how did you survive, during COVID, or when you were getting started, how did you make those decisions? And I always just say I have to use the sales data that's in front of me. I can't speculate. I can't project. I can't assume the market's going to go up, and I can't assume the market's going to go down. I can only use the comps data that I have right here. I know today, this is what the construction costs are. Today, this is what the comps are. And that's it. If you try to guess and spin and speculate on where the market's going to go, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to win, but there's a good chance you're probably going to get burned too.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah, you got to take action ultimately, and got to get things happening. And the more you do, even if you screw things up, you're gonna learn so much from it and you're gonna have lots of wins, because you're gonna have multiple points of taking action. That you're gonna have lots of wins, a couple maybe not great. It's hard to have losses in real estate, real losses. Although I've had a couple, but it's hard to have real losses.
For sure.
Flipping's a little riskier, as you kind of alluded to there at the start. But how did you end up scaling up then? If you have, you had lots of, seemed like you raised money pretty well.
Yeah.
Wouldn't mind learning a bit more about how you were able to do that so early. I know a lot of our listeners probably have the opposite challenge, or both challenges. They probably maybe don't have quite as many deals, but they also don't have the money. So you seem to have done really good at that. Would love to learn more about that and what that looked like, and how you were able to scale, get these things going so fast with so much happening, and in such a short time frame. How were you able to do that?
And the climate we were in too.
Definitely. Yeah. It was tough. As crazy as 2021 was, so was 2018. So was 2019. Have we ever just in the past 5 years, had a slow time in real estate? I feel like when I first got started, 2018 was terrifying. I was like, what is with these bidding wars? Why are people going in with no conditions? I actually found it a very challenging environment to get started in. Mind you, the interest rates were a little better, but so definitely a couple of things there. So one, in terms of raising capital. So this is something a lot of people just absolutely do not want to hear. And I tell it to my students, I tell it to other people who reach out to me on social media, which is exactly where I'm going with this. It's social media. People are it is accessible to you. If you want to raise money, it's pure statistics. You need to be in front of as many people as humanly possible on a constant, consistent basis. Really, the number one way to do that is social media. But people don't like that. People think social media is something you do on your lunch break. You scrolling through Facebook. Oh, it's a joke. Oh, we don't like influencers. Oh, I feel stupid going on a TikTok or whatever the case is. But the hard truth is that you have to and I tell this to people all the time, you need to treat marketing and social media like a job. If that's what it takes to get you on Instagram stories every day, on webinars, on Facebook, whatever the case is, stop thinking about it like it's a hobby or a joke or, just something you do for fun. Like, we take it pretty seriously. And I'm sure you guys do the same thing, right? Like, I mean, we put money behind our social media. Like, we have social media managers. Like, I probably spend hours a day, like not crazy hours, but like at least a good hour, every morning. Like, what am I going to do today on social? And what are my next videos going to be? And what am I launching on YouTube next? And all the strategies we're going to employ. Like, it's a serious thing in my business. And that was one of the things I did when I first got started. Was I was like, okay, I'm kind of like obscure, don't have a lot of connections, don't have a lot of assets. What am I going to do? Like, how am I going to get out in front of people? So I started a YouTube channel. I just put myself out there, and half the time I felt like an idiot. Like, I was like, I didn't know what I was saying, or if people were even going to want to hear what I had to say. But I took that risk, knowing that I had these big goals. I wanted to scale, and the only way I was going to be able to do it was to just get in front of people. And so I went to a lot of networking events, hosted webinars online, like educating people about like the BRRRR strategy in Brantford, and, doing these YouTube videos and trying to get on podcasts like this and YouTube, channels and stuff. And I think that was a huge catalyst to my early success in raising capital. Is like, I had a good product and a good model that made sense from like an ROI perspective. I had relative systems in place. And then I was just willing to get myself out front and center in front of a lot of people. Because I mean, we're all kind of doing the same thing at the end of the day. But if people can't find you, you're not shouting to the world, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. They can't find you. They're not going to invest with you. Or you're going to get drowned out by the people who are doing it bigger, louder, more frequently. So, yeah.
Makes sense. It's marketing. You need to do some sort of marketing, right? I know social media is certainly the cheapest, I would say, and easiest in today's age. When we were starting out, when I was starting out, at least, social media was there, but not nearly in the same way as it was today. This is 10, 12 years ago. And, it wasn't necessarily the best place for that. I wouldn't say, not at that time. And so we just said, you have to talk to as many people as possible. You got to phone, we talked about it in real estate industry as realtors, like you got to make contacts. The only chance to get in front of people is contact people. Yeah. You can't just sit around. And so why not do that at scale, which is social media is certainly as easy as anything, or the most accessible for everyone. And I think it is tough to hear from some people, but you got to market. You have to do some sort of marketing.
You have to put yourself out there. Yeah.
It's going to lead to our next question here, but I think something that the podcast is something that we did, right, to get ourselves out there.
Yeah.
And it's been such a great tool. But I think that if we had have marketed it better, it grew organically.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky for that. But I think that if we could have done it differently and we could go back, we could probably push it like some of the shows that I see coming out now, are really doing it right. And so if you were going to go back, I know it's not that far, but if you were going to go back and do some things over again, what would you do differently?
I actually love this question because it's something I think about all the time. Like, I think we have to evaluate where we've come from in order to just be better and better, like moving forward. And I think I made, I wouldn't say mistakes, but from a strategy, an overall perspective of what I would do differently are two things. So one is I would start more of an active income business in tandem with my BRRRRs. So, because there's probably a lot of listeners here who want to transition out of their 9-to-5s, who want to become full-time investors. And I kind of drank the Kool-Aid of these, networking events and things like that, where they're just buy a bunch of real estate, live off the cash flow, everything will be great. Yeah, but those were investors that, were investing in the early 2000s and the 2010s when cash flow was amazing. Whereas today, getting started when I did in 2018, cash flow was okay. It was like a few $100s a unit. And we were like, great, that's a win. But like, that's not enough, especially if you're splitting that with like a joint venture partner and you have food to put on the table and bills to pay. Like, you're not going to get rich quick off of, that cash flow on your long-term portfolio. But I mean, it has benefit, right? Like, you've got the equity, the ability to refinance. Like, it's all part of the bigger picture when you're trying to transition into being a full-time investor. But had I known it was going to be a slow burn from like a cash in hand perspective, I definitely would have probably invested in some sort of active income business way sooner. So now I do kind of like a variety of active income stuff. I do flips, I do wholesales, I do some Airbnb and things like that. Because I realized, about like a year or two in that I was like, okay, like this is too slow. Like, I'm building up equity, I'm building up net worth, but like, I don't have cash to like really play with here. And that's a lot of advice like I give people in general that want to quit their 9 to 5 is you kind of have to almost focus it like 50-50, like in the beginning, 50 on like kind of legacy portfolio and 50% of your time. Like, I don't care if it's like creating your own property management company, creating your own construction company, like whatever you can do, or flipping, whatever it is. Just you have to bring money. Like, you have to keep pumping capital into this to keep the momentum going. Yeah.
And a lot of people say, don't get involved with your own renovations and stuff like that. But excuse me, early on, I recommend going in and doing some
pay yourself,
doing some stuff. Yeah. Learn, figure out how long it takes to actually do stuff. Because I mean, when you're in the middle of a renovation, you go, what the heck is taking so long? Well, if you've been in there doing it, then you'll know, you'll have a better idea of how long things actually take. And you won't just be coming down on these potentially really great workers that you have going, what's wrong with you guys? Like, why is this not getting done?
Yeah.
I just wanted to put something into perspective too, because you mentioned, like, as hard as it was in 2018 with the climate that you were in and the prices and the competition and all that kind of stuff. I mean, years ago, probably 10 or 12 years ago, something like that. I remember, my thirst for knowledge, listening to this podcast out of Australia, and their big strategy was buying stuff with negative gearing. They called it negative cash flow.
Wow.
Right? And that was a strategy in Australia, buy it, sit on it for like 10 years before it even turns around to start making positive cash flow. But, they're looking at appreciation of the asset and, all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was really interesting that even back then, because that blew my mind, because I'm like, I'm finding stuff with great cash flow here. I'm not doing that. That's insane. Right. But I think, like, if you just look at it, that even in that kind of a atmosphere, people are still choosing real estate as like one of the best options.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, no matter what, like, I mean, like you said, it's like, maybe sometimes it's like lower cash flow, maybe you're pre-construction, maybe sometimes, like, I think right now people are experiencing that things that used to cash flow now at the higher interest rates are sitting on something that's maybe net neutral, and people are panicking and like, should I sell? Should I sell? It's like, well, no, because like, you still got the mortgage pay down, you still got the equity, the rebound that's going to happen in the market, right? It's like, there's always like that bigger picture for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's today's a lot different than even, as short as it's been since you started, like 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. The interest rate market and financial market's extremely different. How has that affected you? Has that affected, I know with the BRRRR strategy that typically we're refinancing, fairly high, right? Based on what we can get and get cash back out. Has anything changed with you in that? Have you reassessed what your strategy is, or have you had, you talked about the cash flow and what that, how important that is. I know I've certainly experienced a decrease in cash flow in a lot of my properties. How are you looking at the market today, and are you changing anything? Changing your approach?
Yeah, like we actually pivoted pretty early in 2022 because we saw right away, like my mortgage brokers already had the bug in my ear, like in late even 2021, saying, look, we're getting like kind of rumors in these places that the interest rates, because I remember they were first talking about end of 2022 that they were going to start putting up the interest rates. And then I remember, I'll never forget, like it was about this time last year, my mortgage broker was like, look, I've heard it's spring or earlier 2022. So we need to like reassess what you're going to do. So I was like, okay, great. Like if that's what's going to happen, then, we need to sit down and figure out what we want to do with our portfolio. And so at that time, we actually kind of put the brakes on some of our BRRRR properties. The market was heating up. It was going insane. We couldn't make anything BRRRRable, like because people were going into just such insane bidding wars in early 2022 that we actually took a step back. And instead, we looked to liquidate a bunch of stuff in our portfolio. So I looked at some JVs that I've had for 4 years. We looked at just underperforming properties that, maybe just didn't quite hit the mark, bad tenants, like whatever, just those properties that were kind of like low hanging fruit that just we weren't happy with. And we just started selling, even to this day, like I have like 5 properties listed. Like we're still kind of going through this like culling period, more or less. So that we can be well positioned for 2023. We kind of just decided look, I can still keep doing these small BRRRRs, but we're just not seeing the same returns. It's harder and harder to find good deals. And we have access to some great money partners right now. So we're actually pivoting, last year we pivoted to commercial real estate, kind of part-time, testing it out, seeing how we liked it. Now that's pretty much all we're going to be focusing on. I feel like with these apartment buildings that we're focusing on, I can make the numbers work. We can predict more accurately what that future value is going to be because we can calculate the NOI, we can calculate the cap rates, and they're just a more stable asset class, right, compared to residential. So we're kind of just playing a giant game of Monopoly, just liquidating a lot of those smaller residential things that aren't performing well. And just kind of transferring all of that into commercial apartment buildings. We're doing that a little bit in the US now, which I'd always said I was never going to go to the US, but broke my own promise because the returns were just too good. Lots of good opportunities popping up there. And we also jumped on the Airbnb bandwagon. I know that's a huge hot topic right now with a lot of people getting into Airbnb. I can tell you it is not for the faint of heart. It is easy to do it very, very wrong. And you definitely need a good team to do it successfully. Ours have been great so far, but I know even Airbnb is struggling right now. People are saying there's this Airbnb apocalypse and, bookings are super low. So, it's been an interesting year for sure. Lots of transition.
Airbnb certainly is not it's kind of I see it kind of like Flips and HGTV style. Everyone, it looks so great and easy,
Yeah.
But it's a lot more to it, and it's not just it's not as easy as they make it look on TV. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a great opportunity there potentially. There's a lot of things to learn and to test out, and every market's different too. There's so many variables.
Absolutely.
And can be a great strategy for great cash flow.
Yep.
Are you doing that in Canada? Is that in the US, or that's in what markets are you looking at for that?
So in terms of for our apartment buildings, we're pretty much looking anywhere. That's, I think the beauty of apartment buildings is I feel with my other BRRRR strategies, I wanted to make sure we're in urban centers and the residential had to make sense and everything. Whereas with these apartment buildings, I'm not going too obscure, in very, very small tertiary markets. But yeah, we're kind of open and just buying stuff in any city. But in terms of Airbnb, we're kind of employing a mixed strategy. So one thing I realized right off the bat is that I don't want to be a seasonal Airbnb host. We have a couple of cottages that I own. Personally, they're more to be kind of family cottages, but put them on Airbnb to kind of recoup some of the costs. And you see the minute October hits, the bookings just dive. And we've been really lucky. They're 4-season cottages, they're drivable distances. They're heated year round with hot tubs and stuff. So we're still getting bookings, but probably just enough to cover our costs for the winter season. So, I was okay, for the rest of my Airbnb portfolio, I need consistency. I need to be able to know I'm bringing in X, amount of dollars per month. So we actually have two kind of camps in our Airbnb business, which is, the seasonal stuff, which we know we have to bank as much cash as possible during the summer months. And then we have our urban Airbnbs. And those are more like midterm corporate stays. They're close to hospitals, universities, sports arenas, concert venues, like whatever, stuff people are coming into town to do, or, places like, I don't know, like let's say Kitchener-Waterloo, where like there's lots of corporate headquarters where we know people are going to probably have to come and stay, maybe 2, 3, 4 month stays occasionally. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. The seasonal stuff to me too is it's just higher risk. It's just
Super high risk.
Just so many variables in that, and it's tough to go through all those seasonalities. You do a lot of coaching, you do a lot of courses, things like that too, which I didn't mention earlier, but I assume that factors into your kind of active income side of things as well, right? How do you help people get into real estate investing, whether through your courses or obviously work with a lot of joint venture partners as well? What are some of the ways you help investors get started in real estate investing?
Yeah, so I would say I definitely lean on my strengths. So I know we talked a lot about systems building, at first, I used to really train people on how to raise capital. I'm a good marketer. That was actually my degree in university. So it finally came in handy after all these years. So I definitely help a lot of people just understand their social media, understand their brand, what they're presenting to a potential money partner, and just helping them get clarity, on what it takes to raise capital. But lately, I've been doing a lot more mastermind focused stuff, because realizing that, raising capital is really just one element of the whole picture. And it's I could sure tell someone how to raise money, but if they don't understand what strategy they should be focusing on, and they don't have the right power team in place, and they don't understand their systems and how eventually they're going to build out a team to delegate tasks to, raising capital just kind of throws money at a problem and doesn't really, flesh out the whole picture. So nowadays my model is more, excuse me, is more helping people figure out what's their system from A to B. Let's build out your whole real estate model. What market should you be focusing on? What type of real estate? How much money do you need to raise? And then what are you going to do? And what systems do we need to put in place to help you continue to scale? I think a lot of my students come to me wanting to transition out of their 9-to-5s, wanting to do this full time. That's a different type of investor than just your everyday person. They have a lot of considerations that they need to think about in order to transition out of that full-time job. So that's a lot of what I kind of focus on with my students now. Yeah.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, and if somebody wants to get involved with the course or other things that you're doing, how would they do it?
So social media, I'm on it all the time, guys. So probably the best way to find me. So if it's on Facebook or Instagram, my handle is at Sarah Eder Invest. Always happy to chat with investors getting started. Yeah.
At Sarah Eder Invest?
Invest. Yeah.
Invest with just the T at the end.
Just the T. Sarah Eder Invest. Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Let's talk about what's next for you. Are you continuing with the Airbnbs? Are you continuing with, we're not going to get into it, but something obviously that I know everyone wants to know is how to finance buildings in the US.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe we will get into it. Okay, look, that's a big thing, right? People want to know if you're going to break into the US and you're going to talk about buying buildings there. How are you getting financing on these things? Let's talk about that just for a minute. We won't get too deep into it.
For sure. So one thing I've learned in my journey, I started off partnering from day one. A lot of people are I don't want to give up that piece of the pie. I want to do it on my own. So, it's everybody's personal preference. But I have employed that model also to what I'm doing now in the US. It helps to have a US based partner. It helps to have somebody that knows the ropes, that has US citizenship, that can get US bank accounts. So that's how because I thought about this in two ways. to get financing for apartment buildings in the US, it's a little easier than residential, just like it is in Canada, right? Because like they're looking at the value of the asset itself rather than the individual. Because the trickiest part about investing in the US is the credit. You have to build up US credit, and that takes time. And just like everything in my life, I was like, I don't want to waste time. You know, I am going through that route, but in the meantime, saying, okay, well, how can I be a part of this while I'm building up my US credit, while I'm doing business ventures in there to build up US income and all that kind of stuff? I was like, let's partner with some people, Americans that have stuff going on, and basically, you know, setting up our corporate structure so that we can pull funds from Canada, my investors, you know, that I'm networking with, into the US. And now the one thing I want to tell everybody too is the least thing you have to be worried about is financing in the States. It is absurd how many financing options there are. Like, it actually almost blew my mind to the point where I was like, I don't even understand all of these options. Like, how are these things? So if you get connected with like the right mortgage brokers down there, guys, and you get set up with the right like syndication structures, getting the financing can actually be not that challenging. Now, the easiest thing to do is like if you can pull some Canadian funds into the US, open up like a C Corp and an LP, and you guys can park some funds in the US, makes it a lot easier for these entities that are lending to you, because obviously the building is going to look good, but it also helps to say, okay, look, I'm starting my credit process here. I've parked, you know, a few $100K US, you know, or Canadian in like some US bank accounts. Here's some corporations I've set up, et cetera, et cetera. It's just going to show a lot more good faith. But again, if you want to kind of go the faster route, getting someone who is already American that's doing some stuff and partnering up, you can do that in Canada too, guys. Like if you are like, hey, I want to get into some big apartment buildings and I'm not quite sure how to do it yet. I don't know if I can qualify. I don't know if I have all the money. Partnering is amazing on these bigger deals because there's so much meat on the bone. There's so much more to go around that you can easily, you know, leverage all of this different expertise. You know, you partner with a contractor or an acquisitions person or a capital raiser, and you guys all pool your resources. You guys can, you know, get it done. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good info.
Yeah.
Last question, real quick, one word. What state are you setting up in as far as like corporation and things like that go? LLC.
Florida.
Okay. What's next for you? Are you just continuing this kind of thing, I guess?
Yeah, like I think the next for me is just, you know, I'm a younger investor, newer to the scene. And I think like I keep getting stuck in the idea that I have to keep doing these BRRRRs or I have to keep doing some of the smaller stuff and realizing that the return on my time is so much better on these bigger deals. And so I think like 2023 exclusively, besides my Airbnbs, because that's like a fun cash flow thing. But, you know, to your point, like what you're saying, Rob, about like your student rentals, my Airbnb is completely passive because I already have a team for like the rest of my real estate. I was able to kind of repurpose some of my employees, and I'm like 100% hands off my Airbnb stuff. So I don't even care what's happening. I just keep getting them and acquiring them and just passing them off to my team. So I don't even worry about that. That's fun. I like it. I want to focus like my energy just on these like larger buildings in Ontario, in the US, just doing kind of more syndicate style apartment buildings and whatnot. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Seems to be a bit of a trend with COVID, I guess. Everyone going to Florida.
Yeah, definitely. Why not be in the sunshine belt? If you're going to invest, might as well have sunshine.
Well, there's some advantages to having, there's some advantages probably tax-wise to going down there, having to go there for work, 100%. Right? And not just going there for pleasure.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's some, why not make that happen in a nice place that you want to go visit anyways?
Exactly. Yeah.
What's one piece of advice or one piece of info that really has stuck with you that's helped you maybe the most in your career? What's one thing you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say don't be afraid to just act and just go for it. I feel like I missed out on so many opportunities trying to be too perfect, trying to make sure like the deal was just right and the timing was just perfect. And I'm sure you guys can attest to this too, that there's no perfect deal. There's no perfect time. There's no perfect anything. And the longer you wait, the longer you sit on the fence trying to time the market or wait for that perfect deal, you're just letting things like pass you by. And I think, you know, all my mentors told me this, and I've experienced it for myself personally, you will figure it out. If you take action, if you buy stuff, even if it's big and it's scary and you're not 100% sure how it's going to work out, you'll make it work. If you throw yourself so deep into the trenches, you'll just make it happen, and it'll be a great learning opportunity.
You'll have no choice but to make it work, right?
Exactly. Sometimes it's the best thing you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on and sharing everything today with us.
Not a problem.
I'm sure you're going to have a bunch of people reaching out to learn more.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. It was a blast.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And one more time, how can people get in touch with you?
All right, guys, if you want to find me on social media, my handle is at Sarah Eder Invest on Instagram and Facebook. And my website is just www.saraheder.com.
EDER.
EDER.
Sarah with an H.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you again. Sandy, how can people get in touch with you?
Same way on Facebook or Instagram is pretty easy. It's Sandy McKay or sandy@freedomreps.com.
And I just wanted to mention here at the end, we are doing some development stuff right now, and it's going to be just for build and sale. So if anyone's interested in getting in on that, contact me, Rob at MrBreakthrough.ca in Costa Rica. In Costa Rica. Yeah.
Okay. Because that's the wow factor. Can't miss that one.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.